Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope that you can hear me. And I just want to say hello to everyone and for all who are joining us from across the world on this important seminar. I'm delighted to be with you today, and I look forward to a positive and informative discussion. The International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan application to the court for arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant lists as their crimes starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, cruelty causing great suffering and serious injury, murder, deliberate acts on civilians, extermination, including by starvation and persecution. These descriptions only scratch the surface of the appalling reality of Israel's crimes. Now, Israel is extending its crimes into Lebanon, using the same tactics of the mass killing of civilians and destruction of homes and infrastructure, and adding outright terrorism, both in its use of hundreds of booby trapped devices, a clear crime under international law that killed and maimed thousands, and in its mass bombing of densely populated residential areas, reportedly using more than 80 buster bombs in a single attack on a six residential tower block. The excuses Israel used in Gaza hold no water in Lebanon. There are no Hamas, there is no hostages. And the claim that Israel has to kill civilians because its targets are using them as human shields is exposed. Because Iranian attack on Israel's Mossad base showed that it is based in a densely populated residential district. It could hardly clearer that the Israeli regime holds international law in utter contempt, expecting to bomb, kill, and invade with complete impunity, targeting schools, hospitals, journalists, all war crimes, and inflicting starvation and disease on millions. Many nations have risen against this, calling for sanctions and legal action against Israel and its enablers. Some in the international community are doing far worse than merely failing to impose consequences. The US, in particular, has been accused of pressuring the ICC to drop its war crimes case and refuse Karim Khan's request for arrest warrants, saying openly that it will not arrest Netanyahu or Gallant if they are issued, and with Israel threatening consequences for officers of the court if they proceed. All this makes a mockery of the so-called rules-based order, showing that some lives matter more than others and that some nations expect to be able to do whatever they want without consequences. Those nations are attacking the very concept of international law with the potential for even more horrific consequences in the future. According to our UK Prime Minister, Israel has a right to self-defense, but Lebanon does not. Israelis have the right to be safe. Palestinians do not. Iran can't launch missiles into civilian areas. Israel can. None of this is coherent. Much of the West, in terms of its governments, has colluded in Israel's crimes. The US and UK have provided political cover, persisting in describing war crimes as Israel's right to defend itself. This is unabashed arrogance, turning a blind eye to genocide or even trying to prevent the slaughter being designated as such, while they, along with Germany and others, treat peaceful protesters as violent criminals to be brutally suppressed. My country, the UK, is waging legal war on journalists and activists who expose and criticize Israel's actions. The same countries are actively colluding in the act of mass murder. They're complicit, providing weapons, spare parts, technical and logistic support for military attacks on civilians, attacking Yemen and allegedly providing special forces to assist in the targeting and execution of attacks. The British public are very clear. 84% of the British public think Netanyahu should be arrested if he comes to the UK. 67% think Israel has committed war crimes. 56% support in all arms sales Israel. The British public are on the right side of history. Our political leaders, however, are not. This inexcusable collusion in Israel's war crimes prolongs and directly contributes towards the suffering of the innocent people of Gaza and now Lebanon. Protecting Israel and its regime from the full force of the consequences of their actions, emboldening its racist leadership on its ambitions to control the whole region, and its attempts to provoke a reaction from its Muslim neighbors that will bring the US fully into a regional war, spreading suffering in the region and intensifying the threat to the whole world. Instead of Western nations fulfilling their obligations under international law to prevent genocide and war crimes, which they have the power to do in days or weeks if they want to, through sanctions and the end of arms sales and military support, our governments are fueling it and extending it. If this world was just, International Criminal Court in The Hague would be very busy in the next few years. And if the peoples of the world unite against criminality, corruption, and warmongering, it still might. It's going to be up to us, the people on the right side of history. Solidarity to all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia. There was a question that came up. I would like to ask as coming from the UK, and what is important that the international community and specifically people in the UK can do to prevent Israel from all-out war?
We continue to have to do what we've been doing. We've been marching in protest and trying to enable our political leaders to listen, to understand that effective punishment is a war crime. Starvation is a war crime. We protest and march, and we try to bring our government to understand these realities. We join with others across the world. As civil society, we're very clear. As I've indicated, the statistics couldn't be clearer about the civilian population and what they see as war crimes and what they believe our governments need to do. We need to end all arms sales to Israel. We must stop this now. The British government says it cannot end the component part of F-35s because that will spoil the supply chain. That's the point, however. We need to end our component part so that F-35s do not and cannot rain down on the people of Gaza and now Lebanon.